Imagine a small, quiet village tucked away in the rolling hills of Derbyshire, England. The year is 1665. The air is crisp, the sheep are grazing, and the residents of Eyam are going about their simple lives. But inside a single, unremarkable wooden crate sent from London, a monster is sleeping. When George Vickers, a local tailor, opened that damp parcel of cloth, he didn't just find fabric for a new suit. He found a death sentence. Within days, he was dead. Within weeks, the village was screaming. But this isn't just another story about the Black Death. This is a story of a choice that defies human nature. While most people in history fled from the plague, carrying the disease with them like a wildfire, the people of Eyam did the unthinkable. They stayed. They drew a line in the dirt and made a pact with God and each other. No one leaves, even if it means we all die. This is the story of the plague village, a story of ultimate sacrifice, a self-imposed prison, and the 260 souls who stood still so that the rest of the world could live. To understand Eyam, you have to understand the terror of 1665. London was a graveyard. The Great Plague was tearing through the capital, killing 7,000 people a week. But Eyam was 150 miles away, a safe distance, or so they thought. The tailor's assistant, George Vickers, hung the damp London cloth by the hearth to dry. The heat woke them up, the oriental rat fleas. They jumped from the cloth to the man. Vickers died on September 7th. Then his neighbors. Then his family. By the end of 1665, 42 villagers were dead. During the winter, the plague seemed to vanish. The cold slowed the bacteria, and a glimmer of hope returned. But as the spring of 1666 thawed the ground, the plague woke up hungry. This time, it wasn't just a few houses, it was everywhere. The village was at a breaking point. Panic began to set in. People packed their bags. They were ready to run to the neighboring towns of Sheffield and Bakewell. If they had left, the plague would have hitched a ride. Thousands more would have died. Entered two men who shouldn't have been in the same room together, William Mompesson, the current Anglican rector, and Thomas Stanley, the Puritan minister he had replaced. They were bitter religious rivals, but in the face of extinction they united. In June 1666, they gathered the villagers and proposed a covenant. They asked the people of Eyam to do three things that seemed like madness. First, the cordon sanitaire. A boundary was drawn around the village. No one was to cross it, in or out. Second, outdoor worship. To prevent the spread of what they called miasma, the church was closed. Services were held in a natural amphitheater where families stood 12 feet apart. Third, the dead stayed with the living. Victims were to be buried immediately in their own gardens or fields, not the churchyard. How did they survive? They weren't entirely alone. Residents of nearby towns, moved by Eyam's sacrifice, left food and supplies at designated boundary stones. The villagers left coins in plague stones, holes filled with vinegar, acting as a primitive disinfectant. Think about the psychological toll. You are watching your children die. You can see the next village over, smoke rising from their chimneys, life continuing. You could run, you could try to save your last surviving daughter, but you don't. You stay behind the line. August 1666 was the darkest month. The heat was stifling, and the plague was at its zenith. In that month alone, 78 people died. Consider the story of Elizabeth Hancock. In just 8 days, she buried her husband and 6 children with her own hands. Because of the rules, no one could help her. She dragged their bodies across the fields and dug the grave herself. You can still visit those lonely cluster of headstones in the middle of a field today. Then there was the village gravedigger, Marshall Howe. He had survived an early bout of the plague and believed he was immune. He spent his days handling the dead, often taking their clothes or furniture as payment. He buried his own wife and son. He was a man living in a ghost town, surrounded by the literal skeletons of his community. By October 1666, the plague finally flickered out. The cost: out of a population of roughly 350 people, 260 were dead. When the border was finally opened in late 1666, the survivors were gaunt, hollowed-out versions of themselves. But their plan had worked. The plague had not spread to the surrounding countryside. Eyam had become a localized tomb, saving thousands of lives at the cost of its own. Today, Eyam is a place of pilgrimage. You can walk the paths where Elizabeth Hancock dragged her children. You can see the plague windows in the church that tell the story in stained glass. In a world that has recently grappled with its own pandemics, the story of Eyam hits differently. It's a reminder that the greatest weapon against a virus isn't just medicine, it's human character. It's the willingness to endure personal suffering for the sake of the stranger. The people of Eyam weren't scientists. They didn't understand germs or fleas, but they understood duty. And in the quiet of the Derbyshire hills, their silence still speaks volumes.